Good evening, anarchists everywhere. I'm Ian Bone and welcome to Anarchism in the UK. Today's guest is Cy Mitchell, filmmaker, activist, iconoclastic scourge of political correctness and resident of Brighton. Welcome, Cy.
Yeah, hi Ian.
Let's talk about your filmmaking career first. As Guerrilla Vision, you made three activist films, Big Rattle in Seattle, Capitol Hills and Crowd Bites Wolf, and based around meetings of the World Bank, the World Trade Organisation. How did you come to make those films in the first place?
Well, I guess around the end of the 90s there were some activist filmmakers. Most notably there was an organisation from Oxford called Undercurrents who were doing an activist style monthly, I think it was monthly news bulletin. And there were various other people doing quite worthy films about issues and stuff that was going on, environmentalism, police activity and so forth. And I think it sort of struck, well, when I say us, it struck sort of various individuals, but individually, that this was quite po-faced and it was quite lecturing and sort of finger wagging, and it always seemed a pity that it wasn't rabble-rousing and it wasn't inspiring. And I guess the sort of the what you like out of your cinema, or what I like out of my cinema, is that I like it to inspire me. And I met a character who's myself and him became the core of Guerrilla Vision actually in Seattle. We went out there for the World Trade Organisation conference in November '99, and I guess we knew there was going to be a big fight and it was going to be exciting. So we sort of went.
You intended to make it, so.
Well, me and several thousand other people, and I met a character there called Leon, who had a camera that he had recently piked from the Hong Kong airport duty-free shop. He'd jumped over the counter and pulled it out of the cabinet while he was waiting for his aeroplane. So we had the camera, and actually we came by the microphone, I think courtesy of a Radio Shack that the security wasn't all that on in Seattle, and then we made the first film, Big Rattle in Seattle. Specifically, the idea was to wind people up, in a positive way, to get people to take to the streets. I mean, at the time we were all quite excited by the anti-globalisation movement. Anarchism was on the up. Generally the left was getting more active and more excitable. So we thought we'd fan the flames.
That must have turned into a much bigger riot than you thought, though, didn't it, Seattle?
Yeah, I think riot's probably a grander description for what happened in Seattle than what it was. It was a huge mobilisation of people, and it was really exciting. I remember at the time, though, a lot of the Americans gone, "Oh, this is the beginning of something. This is the beginning of something," which upset a lot of the English anarchists and activists who were there, who were like, "Well, actually, some of us on the other side of the Atlantic have been working very hard and this sort of stuff for a long time." We'd also just recently had a big demonstration in the City of London on June 18th, which had culminated in people getting inside the stock exchange. A really, cleverly orchestrated action. This was a sort of the parting cry of Reclaim the Streets, which had some fairly good, exciting, positive run-ins with the state during the 2 years previous to that. So Seattle, the reason we knew Seattle was going to be big was because the Americans were so interested in what had been happening in Britain and in Europe, and they decided actually we'd like a bite of that apple ourselves.
There's a full-length American feature film coming out.
Yeah, no, so I hear all-star cast with Andre 3000 and whatnot, yeah.
Are you watching out for any infringement of copyright?
Absolutely, man. The invoices are in.
So then you went on to do am I right that the Washington DC one was the next one, Capitol Hill?
We went, which was the following April, I think. So it was just several months later, and mainly it was just to sort of galvanise what we'd done in Seattle, because we met each other in Seattle. We had a lot of fun anyway, and I guess we were just moving along with a movement that it was getting bigger and kind of exciting, and hands up, our carbon footprints were probably getting a little heavier in the sand. But yeah, we went to Washington DC because following the Seattle film, we had some ideas that we wanted to put into practice.
I'm taking it you don't hold much store by filmmakers' objectivity. You seem to be the only filmmaker I've come across who combines participation in a right with filming it.
Well, I think in the media, not just in filmmaking and documentary, but in journalism as a whole, I think objectivity, or this sort of myth of objectivity, is something that I find quite irritating. The BBC will claim to have objectivity, but just by who they choose to interview, the questions they choose to ask, the edits they make, the issues that they ignore, the debates they never have, all these things are incredibly subjective. And it's a pretense, it's a farce to go, we're being objective just because we've got Paxo in a suit, barking some irrelevant question at the Home Secretary. It's like, the wider debate of why do we have to accept the system as it is? Why can't we overturn the whole apple cart and run down the street naked? It's like, it's not happening. So I guess to us, it was more honest to be subjective and to put our hands up and say, look, this is where we're coming from, and we're honest about it, and we're subjective, and yeah, damn straight, man. What we made were propaganda films, and we wanted people to take to the streets. Yeah,
one of the quotes I've read about the 3 Guerrilla Vision films is, when you've seen all 3, you will reach for a rock and head off to attack the nearest symbol of capitalist oppression. So that was the correct intent of the film.
Was that your quote?
That wasn't mine, no. I found that on the web, that's a genuine quote. So perhaps you made it up.
Yeah, no, that's nice. Not everybody was quite as flattering.
Yeah, talking of which, after Crab Bites Wolf in Prague, George Monbiot wrote in The Guardian that Crab Bites Wolf was full of gratuitous violence and basically riot pornography. What have you got to say to that?
It's actually quite a funny story, because the reason Monbiot got to see the film was because this girl, I don't know what to say her name, but she had made a film about the Quakers. And she'd taken the film to Monbiot, hoping that Monbiot would give her a quote to stick on the cover of it so she could promote it and maybe get it on the television. And, and for some reason she took our film along to give him an example of the sort of flip side. So obviously the Quakers, the peaceniks, and I never actually saw her film. I'm sure it was great.
You're all heart.